Hello again, good people. Welcome into another episode of HBCU Huddle. I am CJ Hurt, joined alongside, as always, by Mike. Mike, you busy, man? All over the nation watching these Grizzlies play.
All over the nation, man. And listen, I can't complain. It's that time of year where it's a lot going on. And it's good to be working, CJ. Like, you're not all over the nation, but you're all over Grind City Media doing any and every show that we have out there. So
all over this little
That's it.
mile and a half
Fiefdom
block.
Kingdom.
This little fiefdom kingdom, whatever you want to call it. We got a great show for you guys lined up today with Celebration Bowl week. So, of course, we're going to preview that matchup between the Florida A&M Rattlers and the Howard Bison. So we've got that. We've got Box to Row this week announced their All-Americans. We'll take a look at some of those and talk about that. They also announced their superlatives, best offensive player, best defensive player, and coach of the year. So we'll absolutely take a look at those as well. There's a great video clip making its way around the social media sites. Ricky Smiley talking to a group of kids at an alternative school, I do believe, offering some really cool things, some really good words of wisdom and encouragement. We'll definitely talk about that. Illinois State, Norfolk State had a little dust up. Not a little dust up. Well, it was a little dust up. Big issue, though. So we'll talk about that as well. We had a great show lined up for you guys yesterday. We were ready to go. Get home, get on Twitter, Mike, and I see Fred McNair is going to Texas Southern? What? So that threw everything into disarray. Threw everything off for us. Fred McNair going to, it's all reported, it's not official yet, but reports are saying from a lot of really credible people in the HBCU sphere, it's a done deal. They're just waiting to make it official. Fred McNair is going to be the new head coach over at Texas Southern, leaving Alcorn State behind.
That's a shocker. That's a shocker. And, you know, when you sent me the text, I was in Houston on basketball business, and I immediately stopped everything I was doing. And all I could send back was just wow, with exclamation points. That's one of the ones that we did not see coming. I don't think anyone saw that coming, with the exception of Fred McNair. This is a guy who's, like, his family, his history is at Alcorn State University. His brother was the quarterback, obviously the legendary great late Steve McNair. Fred played there. They had another brother that played there. He has nephews that play there, family members who work there. He's been the head coach there for the last 7-8 years, and, you know, back-to-back SWAC West champs. This is a stunner, man, and you know, he's HBCU Huddle's favorite coach.
Yep.
We know that, right? You love him and his men's down there, right?
Yep.
And on the reservation. And now they're going to the plains of Texas, man. And great move by Texas Southern. I mean, absolutely fantastic move by Texas Southern. And, you know, McNair is going to do a great job wherever he lands. This is a big-time blow for Alcorn State, though. I think they're going to have to take a step back. But if Fred can recruit the way he's done before, with the resources and the city and the and the region that he's going to be doing it in Houston, I just left Houston, and man, that's a diamond in a rough program ready to explode.
You bring up those types of programs when we talk about great coaching jobs, places where it's passionate and fertile recruiting grounds, those sorts of things. You bring up Alabama State often as one of those diamond in the roughs, like, yo, with the interest there and their ability to recruit should be a bit better. I think Texas Southern is there. You pointed that out as well. You're in Houston, which is one of the biggest cities in Texas.
In the country.
In the country. But I'm just thinking of recruiting for Texas, right? If you're going to be good at this as a head coach, being a head football coach, you've got to be able to recruit one of these states, Florida, California, Texas, New Jersey maybe, and like Louisiana. Like, you've got to be good, certainly the first three, Florida, California, Texas. You've got to be able to recruit those well. And I think that being in Texas certainly helps that. Coach McNair is 48-33 overall, 37-17 in the SWAC. And you brought it up, Mike. He's fourth straight SWAC East titles from 2016 to 2019. He won the technically he tied with a 6-2 conference record for the SWAC West championship this year, first in the SWAC West. But tiebreakers came into play, and so they don't get that. And so you're talking about a coach who has been to a couple of Celebration Bowls, albeit in defeat, but he's been to a couple of Celebration Bowls, and he's a 5-time conference division champion. And if you're Texas Southern, if you can win that division, that's great. And let alone win the conference, that's even better. If you're Fred McNair, if I'm Fred McNair, just putting myself in his head, I don't know what's going on there, what led to the move. I think a couple of things may have done it. One is, hey, I stay in the SWAC West. I know what's going on over here, and I get to a better, more fertile recruiting ground. The second thing I think is, hey, these people might care a bit more about football than Alcorn State did coming out of the pandemic.
Yes.
Where we know
point.
Alcorn State didn't compete in 2020 in that spring season. They come out 2021, and I do believe that was they don't have any
training staff. Yeah.
They don't even have any training staff. And I would imagine as a coach of Coach McNair's accomplishments, stature, achievements, accolades, all of those things, I would imagine he didn't get there by just being a dummy. I would bet that he went to administration like, hey, we need some things here, one of which is trainers, but I would bet there's a list of things that he feels like that football program needs. Now, he's not going to go Ed Reed. He's not going to scorch earth this thing.
Yeah.
So I think that
because there's too much respect.
He is
too much respect for that place.
In a bit of a quieter, lack of a better phrase, more dignified sort of a way, more professional way, saying, okay, they just don't get it. This administration just isn't on the same page with me on basic needs for the football program. Let me go someplace else where I know those needs can be met. And that other place is Texas Southern.
There's also some issues that you raised there that are very true. And obviously he's also had 2 or 3 different athletic directors. That changed. He has a couple of different presidential changes of the administration. And with each change, he kind of got further away from the influence that he's normally accustomed to having there. And you know it. I mean, he told you at SWAC Media Day, look, when I'm not thinking about football, I'm on the football field cutting grass, right? So he's doing stuff that most head coaches of football teams at that level don't have to do, you know what I mean, of his resume. So I'm happy for him. At a certain point, though, your voice, and I say this, for whatever reason, and this applies, I can only speak for myself, but no matter what I'm doing in life, there's a graduation process and a period where every 4, 5, or 6 years, you feel like it's time to do something different. Because sometimes your voice gets stale in the same place. Sometimes administrations and people change around you. And sometimes you just are ready to grow in a different direction. And I know Coach McNair still has a lot of coaching. He cares about the young men's. And Texas Southern doesn't have the tradition that Alcorn has in terms of pumping out championships and high-quality caliber players, Michael Strahan aside. But what they do have is a willingness to pay. They have a market. They have, with the new NIL and recruiting, you're in Houston, Texas, a place that's easy to get to for your family, a place that you can do a lot of things at. And I think that's the attraction right there. And I looked at that pay that they just paid their previous coach. It was $310,000, $320,000. I would almost guarantee that that's more than what Alcorn was paying Fred McNair down there on the reservation. So if Fred comes in and gets even a little bit more than that previous coach based on his resume, you're talking $350,000 to $400,000 to coach. And that's a nice payday according to what coaches at his level are getting right now. So it's a win-win for him, man. I think they're going to do wonders. I think they're going to win their division within the next 2 years. And I think it's going to be a quick fix for him there because that's the kind of person that he is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's get to Celebration Bowl. Celebration Bowl.
Well, we got another one though. We got another coaching move.
What?
Chinnisberry took over at South Carolina State. Yeah,
I forgot that happened over the weekend.
Yeah, that happened over the weekend too. So
very fiery speech also.
It did, and he talked about replacing 2 legends in Buddy Pugh, obviously, and then before that, Willie Jeffries. Chinnisberry is a guy that took Benedict to back-to-back Division II conference championships and playoff berths. 12-1 one year, 12-0 going into the playoffs this past year. So, this is another step up. We said it was a natural progression. Yeah. He just needed to play the field a little bit. But I think it ended up with him being where he wanted to be and where he needed to be, and he doesn't even have to move. Yeah. He's right there where he needs to be in South Carolina. So we'll see how that goes as well too. But that's not an easy job But he's going to do it with defense. He has the pedigree that the previous two coaches had, and we'll see if they can make that next push in the MEAC with Chennis Berry as head coach.
For those of you who aren't familiar with SEAC sports, SEAC football particularly, and it's D2, so I don't. Why would you be right? Benedict is not supposed to be this. They just aren't. They aren't. Historically, they aren't this. They are fine. They are not trying to take shots at nobody's program. So Dragons, please don't come at me. I got to go to Jackson to see my family. They're closer to Lane, right? Like they're Lane-ish. They Miles-ish.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Like that conference is typically Tuskegee and somebody.
Yeah.
Tuskegee and Kentucky State. When I was there, maybe Tuskegee and Miles, Tuskegee and somebody. But it's clearly Tuskegee running that conference on typical years, most years, right? But no, not
the last
not
two.
Here recently. And that is due in large part to his ability to coach, his abilities, particularly defensively, to just shut you down. Benedict has been great the past 2 years under his coaching, and I look forward to seeing what happens at South Carolina State, what those Bulldogs can do in the MEAC with them.
Now, did we, and this is one other too, because I know this one got lost in the shuffle, but Southern, we talked about that last week.
We talked about
Okay, so that now leaves, guess who's still looking for a coach?
Who?
Grambling. Grambling. Hey, we're going to get this done in 5 to 7 days. We're going to jump out, and we really feel like we're going to have a lot of national interest in this job. And we expect to have a coach hired and in place in the next week. It's kind of been 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 20-something days since you made the decision. So it's not that easy, man.
You have to know going into that last game of the season, going into the Bayou Classic, if that game is a loss, you have to know, like, okay, we're going to move on from Coach Hugh Jackson. And with that being the case, you have to have a list of names that you can go, okay, this is our reach. These are some names we think we can get. And this is one we know we can get, and just boom, start churning that out. It shouldn't take this long, I wouldn't think, unless either one, you don't have the list, or two, you had the list and everybody was like, nah.
And your list isn't realistic.
Yeah, everybody was like, nah, we're not doing that. It's not realistic or other reasons why. Alcorn State is looking for a coach too, Mike.
Yeah, now they shift. And so now you have two programs on that side, in Louisiana and Mississippi looking for head coaches, two storied programs. And, we'll see where it goes. But we're starting to see that HBCU coaching train move. And you had a great point, man, before we shift and go in a different direction about how it seems like it's the same group of candidates. And even some of the greater coaches aren't really able to move beyond the HBCU ranks.
Yeah, I think it is interesting when I look at, this guy's getting a head coaching opportunity, just insert Coach X or whatever. Coach X is getting an opportunity. Let's do a little bit more research, a little bit more digging. Not a lot, just a little bit, just to get familiar with him. Oh, Coach X was at this HBCU before he got here, in this HBCU before he got here, in that HBCU before he got over here. I think that it is something. What it is, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a good thing, bad thing, indifferent thing, but it is a thing where there are, once you get in as a head coach at a HBCU, you'll always be able to cycle through, not always, but you'll be able to cycle through the other HBCUs as head and get another head coaching opportunity. I think the example I gave was Coach Maynard at Winston-Salem, then going to Alabama A&M. He was at Hampton, Winston-Salem, Alabama A&M. And I would think that in that time he would have had some pretty good teams or something that would make somebody higher than FCS take a look and say, hey, you know what? I'm kind of interested in this. Let's at least talk to him. Maybe somebody did talk to him about a position as a head coach or a coordinator or something like that, and he just said no. But you would think that would be the case. You would also think that sometimes it feels like before the seat gets hot, these coaches know, okay, before I overstay my welcome here at this HBCU, I can just bolt and go to the next HBCU. And as long as you get one, give me a year. And as long as year 2 or 3 is pretty good, you'll be able to parlay that into either another extension or another opportunity at the HBCU level.
Two great examples recently. Both happened at Southern, right? You know what I mean? Southern just got rid of a coach who was at Prairie View and had
Coach
two
Dooley.
great seasons. Dooley had 2 great seasons at Prairie View, up and coming. And before that door started to close a little bit and reality hit, he bolted over to Southern, right? And even before that, I mean, it's one of those situations where, you know, Southern's coach, it got hot around him, and then he went to Norfolk State, right? So it's in those situations where you got to kind of see that coming. But I think a really, really good test case in this is what will happen with Willie Simmons at FAMU. Because not only did he play at the Power 5 level as a quarterback at Clemson for a while, he's also coached at different spots as assistants at, you know, Power 5 programs and that kind of thing. And now he's an elite coach at the HBCU level and a top 5 coach at the FCS level. So he went out and interviewed for South Florida, didn't get it. You know, you got to see these guys be able to take the next step if they want to. Not everybody wants to leave HBCU. Some people are just comfortable in that, and they feel like they can build a legacy there. But I do know Willie Simmons wants to elevate FAMU. They've elevated, and now, you know, you got to wonder, okay, what's next, especially if he completes this thing and wins the Celebration Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Celebration Bowl, Mike,
There you
FAMU, Howard, this Saturday. It's no longer the first bowl game. There's a bowl game on before, and I don't like that. There's one on at 10. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy having bowl games in the morning time. But I'm accustomed to the first bowl game.
They got undercut, man.
Yeah,
they got undercut this
somebody
year.
decided to come in at 10. Like Buffalo versus somebody. I can't remember who it is. The number 1 ranked in the Box Row media polls is number 1 ranked Florida A&M against number 4 ranked Howard. When you look at how these teams stack up statistically, points per game, FAMU 30.7. Howard, 28.7 total offense, 376 yards in total offense for FAMU, 383 total yards of offense for Howard per game, points allowed per game. You're talking about FAMU, who is really, really good in holding opponents in that category as well. You're talking about total defense, 316 yards per game for Howard. Where am I at? 267, for Florida A&M. They are second best in the nation in that category as well. And now when you look at impressive stats, Howard allows 129.5 yards passing, best in the FCS, whereas for Florida A&M, you're talking about a team who is a monster on third down, holding opponents to just 27.6% on third down conversion, second best in the FCS. When you look at these teams throughout the course of the season, Mike, and we've watched them extensively throughout the course of the season. We've seen what they are. Who do you like in this matchup and why?
I think going in, when you look at the totality of the body of work, Florida A&M should be the prohibitive favorite to win this game, right? They go in looking like they should be a touchdown to 10-point favorite if you put a line on the game from that standpoint. I just think that their depth, what they can do in terms of their balance on both sides of the ball, and their ability to score in all 3 phases. You can score, obviously, offensively because they have one of the best offensive systems in the league. Their defense is a pick six and a strip sack waiting to happen in terms of scooping scores. But they also have a special teams, man, that puts points on the board from a kicking game and also the return game. So, FAMU there's not a weakness in how they are built whatsoever right now. I do think Howard has to be opportunistic. They have to have that running game going, that short passing game going in order to operate and get down the field. I know that Howard can hang with FAMU. I just don't know if they can beat FAMU.
Yeah, and it'll be on Gallup and the rest of that secondary for Howard to try and hold Missoula and that explosive Rattler offense in check.
Yeah.
I think that you're right.
Musa. You're going Boston Celtics head coach right there.
Musa. It's right. NBA season.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
getting
crossover.
All these names.
Yeah.
But, yes, Musa. It'll be on him, Gallup, in that secondary, like I said, to try and slow them down in the passing game. If you're Howard, I think that you would want to muck this up a bit. You would want to say, okay, if you're going to score, It's not going to be on a deep pass. It's not going to be a bomb down the field. You're going to have to be methodical in all of your scoring drives. I think that it is difficult to put together 4 10-play drives in a game, right? When you don't see that, that lead to scores.
Right.
There are a lot of 4-play drives, and
quick,
that 4th play is just
quick
boom,
hit,
big play, quick hit. So if you're Howard, I would assume you'd say, okay, we're gonna put 2 deep, and we're just gonna keep everything in front of us. You're gonna have to drive this thing down the field. Can you do it 4 or 5 times? And when you do it, can you score touchdowns in the red zone? Don't forget, Howard has a tremendous trio of backs that they can hang their hats on. And when you have 3 running backs, it's not like quarterbacks where if you have 2, you don't have 1.
Right.
When you have 3 running backs, all who can do
Yep.
different things really, really well, that keeps the defense on their toes, keeps them guessing, and allows for you to eat up clock as well on the offensive side of the ball.
Part of that strategy, as you're alluding to, is that Howard has to keep FAMU's offense off the field.
Yeah.
Right. And Howard has quick strike ability. We saw them hang with Northwestern.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the Big Ten, a bowl-eligible Northwestern team. 23-20 or something like that. They slowed them down when they were overmatched in terms of scholarships and everything else that went into that game. You know, we've seen them run through North Carolina Central, which was number 1 team in HBCU.
50-20? What was that?
By 30.
Yeah,
they
30.
won by 30, 50-20. So we know that they have the ability to score a lot of points. They put a lot of points up in a shootout with Hampton earlier in the season. So
Lost by 1.
Lost by 1. So it's one of those things where Howard has the ability to adapt to whatever pace you need him to play at. I'm just concerned about FAMU's ability to score in these little cracks and crevices from that standpoint. Look, it's going to be a phenomenal matchup. I'm definitely going to tune in and be willing to lock in, and I'm going to be intrigued by it. It's not the sexiest matchup when you talk about attracting viewers. I think, after you come off of 2 straight Celebration Bowls where you have the prime effect, you kind of get spoiled with the hoopla. Howard doesn't have a tremendous following, not even at their home stadium. They got basically maybe a 2,000-seat home stadium. FAMU will travel to Atlanta and do big things there. Both teams are already there, and they're looking forward to a big-time showdown. I think it's going to be a coronation for Willie Simmons and the Florida A&M Rattlers, but I do think Howard can build from this year, and next year is going to be their year to really break through.
I think while you're 100% right about Howard and where football is and Howard culture, where Howard is and where this might come into play with the Celebration Bowl is Howard is a brand and a name
nationally.
That the casual HBCU fan and black people who aren't familiar with all of the HBCUs, you say Howard and they say, oh no, I know about Howard. That's HBCU in DC. It is one of the bigger brands that we have at the HBCU level. And one of the great things about the Celebration Bowl, been to the last 2, is that it isn't just these 2 teams' fans. It is everybody coming together. Like, I went to Jackson State, North Carolina Central, Jackson State, South Carolina State, taking pictures with Tuskegee grads, walking by Hampton alum, walking by Alcorn State fan, like decked out North Carolina A&T fans, just decked all the way out. And I think that having Howard there with the brand Howard is, people will say, oh, Howard is going to be playing. Let's go to Atlanta and hang out and see what's going on with their football team having no real knowledge about what's going on.
They have a national alumni base.
Yeah.
Vice President Kamala Harris is a Howard alum. So, the controversially embroidered P. Diddy, Puffy, is a Howard alum who just gave $1 million to the school this year. Chadwick Boseman is a Howard alum. Taraji P. Henson is a Howard alum.
They have stars.
They have stars.
If you think stars are going to be there,
this is the team that they rally around.
You're going to show up as a casual fan.
Absolutely.
As well. I look forward to seeing what the numbers are. I look forward to seeing the game. I'm with you, Mike. I will take FAMU. I don't like making that pick. SWAC has yet to win one of these, and every single year that I've seen, it's like, oh no, the SWAC got this one. Nope, here comes South Carolina State to beat the hell out of Jackson State.
Technically, FAMU is only 2 years into the SWAC, so one way or another, a MEAC legendary program is going to win. Right? Yeah.
Right. Let's go before we get to the unfortunate situation that happened at Illinois State with Norfolk State. Let's get to some of the box to row All-Americans. Donald Ware, great job, curator of the Box to Row polls, also does an All-American list each year for HBCUs. And this year's list full of a bunch of stars. Everybody on here are players who we talked about on this show, and we talked about them because they had special seasons. We're talking about on the offensive side of the ball, Davius Richard, Ladarius Owens, brought him up last week, the guy who set the record for rushing yards at Texas Southern. Jada Byers, one of, if not the best running back at the D2 level. We got Cameron Colvin from Florida A&M on the offensive line, and we also have a bunch of other really quality offensive linemen. Witherspoon is on there from Howard. Howard has 2 offensive linemen who made this list. Keyshawn Johnson, Alabama State, just a walking big play waiting to happen. Malachi Langley and Tavarius Griffin from Alcorn State. Mike, when you look at the list of first teamers on the Box to Row All-American offensive side of the ball, who stands out to you and why?
Well, they got a lot of offensive linemen on there.
A lot of ties. A lot of ties.
Yeah, a lot of guys that are big. And when you look at offensive linemen, that's been the path to the NFL for a lot of guys. I mean, whether they're undrafted free agents or late round picks. So I think that's the case right there. I'm intrigued by both of those running backs, though. I mean, Virginia Union had one of the best running games in the country at the Division II level, and we saw what Texas Southern was able to do. And that's going to be interesting because as we look forward, I'm not sure if the young man is coming back to Texas Southern. I don't know what his classification is, but if he does have eligibility left, he better be on the phone with McNair right now because McNair makes stars out of his running backs.
Oh, yeah.
He does a great job there with the running game. So though the running backs and the offensive linemen, that depth up front is what impressed me.
If you're Owens, you're absolutely. If you don't have it, you're trying to find a way to get it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, coach, help me find a way to get this extra year of eligibility, man.
Yeah.
I can do some big things. Let's take a look at the defensive first team All-Americans on the Box to Row All-American list. Our guy, Terrell Allen from Tennessee State, one of the best players in the Big South / OVC, one of the best defensive players in all of the FCS is on there. Sundiata Anderson from Grambling is there as well. We've talked some about some secondary players. Kenny Gallup from Howard. You also have Kendall Bowler from Florida A&M there. Isaiah Major, speaking of Florida A&M linebacker from FAMU. Mike, who stands out to you on this list?
Oh, man, Terrell Allen, from Tennessee State. I think he went back-to-back weeks where he was the OVC Big South Player of the Week, and he just completely dominated. You know what I mean? The reason why Tennessee State turned it around this year was far more because of its defense than it was its offense. And he was the man in the middle of that offense, wreaking havoc with tackles beyond the line of scrimmage, and just making big play after big play every time that defense needed to get off the field. So Allen at Tennessee State, man, was a beast. And all of these guys have been great. But, I just wish Sundiata Anderson from my Grambling State University Tigers could have had a little bit more to show for his talent. I think he is an NFL prospect. But Allen is the guy right there when it comes to who stood out the most to me on the list.
Had a monster year. I also want to say Isaiah Major. He got my vote for
yes.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Really thought he, as a linebacker, was more than just a disruptor. He was somebody who could get out in the coverage as well, sideline to sideline, look forward.
Just like Isaiah Land and Marquise Bell, the previous 2 from FAMU that did big things.
He's the player I'm most looking forward to watching in the Celebration Bowl Saturday. Let's look at the specialists because I've got some serious issues with the specialists. You've got Roy Jackson III. Why didn't my partner get in? Why didn't my punter get in? My punter didn't get in because Jimmy Isles from Grambling State got in. And all I'm saying, Mike, is if y'all had an offense, he wouldn't have been punting damn much.
I know, man.
And I could have got my guy in. So there are no Golden Tigers. My punter was the one to get in.
That was it. So we basically went under, right? We bid under because our offense was that bad. And that's funny because Grambling had one of the best rushing offenses all the way up until midway through the season. But to have that many punts and to punt that well, hey, that's one of those things where you're like, man, that's a citizenship award. That you used to get, attendance award, right? I'm coming to school every day, but I'm not on the honor roll. I'm not on the valedictorian list or the principal's thing. I'm just here every day. That's what if you're the best punter in the SWAC, it's probably because your offense couldn't get anything going.
When we take a look at the superlatives, the Offensive Player of the Year, Mike, who did you vote for?
Offensive Player of the Year, I gave it to Davius Richard. I didn't think that there was anyone that stood up to the career that he's had and the season that he's had this year with touchdowns, offensive and defensive. I do think that ultimately it hurt them that they didn't diversify the offense enough to allow him to make plays for others. He took a lot of that burden on himself, but he racked up some major numbers.
And good job voting, because he ended up winning Offensive Player of the Year. He's MEAC Offensive Player of the Year, tied for first in the FCS in points responsible for with 24. 313 yards of total offense per game, leads the MEAC, and that is fourth best in the FCS. 18 rushing touchdowns, second in the FCS as a quarterback. Second in the FCS in rushing touchdowns. His touchdown to interception ratio is 21-4. That's fourth best in the FCS. So not only is he throwing the ball and scoring touchdowns for you, he's doing a good job taking care of it. He is a finalist for the Walter Payton Award. For those of you who don't know, that award goes to Best Offensive Player in the FCS. I think that's even with the loss to Howard, I tried to find a way to justify putting anybody up there, but just couldn't do it. His stats, the year he's had, and he didn't play.
He missed 2 games.
2 games?
Yeah, he missed 2 games. Yeah.
The numbers would have been astronomical had he played those 2 games. When we look at the Box Row Defensive Player of the Year, I told you who I voted for, but the player who won is Terrell Allen, Big South OVC Defensive Player of the Year. He leads the FCS in tackles for loss, sacks, and tied for first in the FCS with 5 forced fumbles.
All right, no doubt about that. I mean, like, that resume speaks for itself. I mean, it speaks for itself because he's also playing at Tennessee State, which week after week plays at a higher level because of the quality of competition that they're facing in that conference. And you got to remember, they also opened the season at Notre Dame. So if he was in that game and put up numbers against Notre Dame, that's how he started his year. Yeah. And then you just go from there, man, and he got better as the year went on.
Who did you vote for Coach of the Year?
Coach of the Year, I gave it to Willie Simmons.
Okay.
I gave it to Willie Simmons. MEAC Coach of the Year, I gave to Larry Scott over Trey Oliver. But Coach of the Year overall, I think Willie Simmons did the most remarkable job to come in. And I can remember like it was yesterday, CJ, like when we pulled up and went into SWAC Media Days, you and I both said, FAMU's walking around here with a different air about them. Like they're walking around here as if they are champions already. And somebody has to prove that they're worthy to be on the field in the SWAC with them. And they carried that all the way through. And Willie Simmons did his job, man. I love what he's done there. And he deserves it. Deserves it by far to me.
I voted Larry Scott from Howard. I think that when you look at the expectations for what Howard was expected to be versus what Florida, we kind of expected FAMU to be this. It was, hey, this is what they should be. Let's watch together and see if this is actually what they are. Whereas with Howard, it is, oh boy, we don't know what they're going to be. They're certainly going to be behind North Carolina Central in that conference. How far behind them, we're not really sure. And they were ahead of them, and they won that conference thoroughly ahead of them.
They beat them thoroughly, right?
Yes, right. And won a couple of close games. I think that was in large part to coaching on his part. So that's who I voted for. But the winner is, you know how to vote, Mike. Willie Simmons won Box Row Coach of the Year. He led FAMU to an undefeated SWAC record, an undefeated FCS record as well. They're SWAC champions, top 3 in the FCS in total defense. Listen, I can't be mad at anybody for voting for Coach Simmons. That he would be my number 2.
Yeah, and he's done it as an offensive-minded guy, right? And their defense has been what sent guys to the NFL. Yeah. So he knows how to recruit. He knows how to lead a program. He knows how to galvanize a community. He's from that area. He's deeply invested in Tallahassee. And again, man, like I don't want to say he has to leave HBCU to go to greener pastures, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not downing HBCU programs. But when you talk about the best jobs that go to the best guys who are ready for those opportunities, I would really, really love to see him get a shot, especially now that we're seeing more African-American head coaches at the Power 5 level and at the FBS level. Willie Simmons can lead a program, and he can do some great things.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to talk Norfolk State, Illinois State, and we'll get to Ricky Smiley in our Culture Maker segment coming up next on HBCU Huddle on Grind City Media.
Let's talk about what's going on in the rest of the NBA.
Which one of these 3 teams has been the most surprising and impressive to you?
We in Minnesota now. Definitely. I thought that Minnesota was going to be a better team. Did I know that they were going to be this good? I don't know.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grizzbeat, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
You know, it's always great playing here whenever I did play here. Coming back, it was one of the reasons why I chose to come back here.
Yes, and Rose sniping the steal, goes up against Murray and scores.
I love the atmosphere. I love the arena.
Fast break basketball. Ronnie, Lover, the next form is rocking.
I want to be a part of it, so that's one of the reasons why I came.
If you guys don't know what this is, I'm sure some of you guys caught an L today because we definitely caught an L today.
Yes.
This is the Kobe 6 Pro Show Reverse Grinch.
Yep.
So the regular Grinch had where everything is red and it was green with the black swoosh on there with the
Red laces.
With the red laces. So now they just did the reverse model of these here. So these are actually good. Like they real light too.
They're nice.
The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
We're going dancing. Welcome to Fandom 101. We need you going crazy in the stands. Your path to fan mastery begins here. It's all part of the curriculum. The NCAA Division I men's basketball first and second rounds this March in Memphis, Tennessee. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/MBB tickets. Class dismissed.
Welcome back, everybody. HBCU Huddle, CJ Hurt, Mike Wallace. Follow me on Twitter at ConRadicalness. Follow Mike on Twitter, my Mike Check on Twitter, MIKE on the Twitter. An unfortunate situation popped up over the weekend, Mike, in the Illinois State versus Norfolk State basketball game. Basketball player for Norfolk State was called a racial slur. I do believe it was the N-word, was the racial slur by some fans sitting courtside. Like when you see that and hear stories of that happening in 2023, how does that make you feel as a black man?
CJ, I got to be honest, man. I'm conflicted on it, you know, because at any point that word is used, it's a derogatory term, and you know, I'm not going to say it's 2023 and there should be no place for bigotry and hatred. Like, when does that expire, right? Like, there's no expiration date on foolishness and debauchery and all of those kind of things. But as it relates to this particular word, I'm conflicted because we've put so much power of the use of that word in the person using it as opposed to the word itself. And as a black man, I cringe when I hear the word from a white person, and I doubly cringe when I hear it thrown around so frequently by black people. I've come a long way in that. Like, it didn't always offend me, and I used to use the word in a term of endearment. When I was younger and, in my college, high school, just the way you talk when you're playing ball is just, need this, need that. I mean, it's like, I get that, or I got that, until I said, you know what, enough's enough. If I'm going to weaponize that word when it's used by person A, then I can't embrace the same word when it's used by person B, especially when it's directed so freely and so loosely. It's poison, man. That word is poison. And no matter who's holding the syringe, there's still poison in that vial. And I hated it for the young men at Norfolk State. And it just didn't make sense because this racial slur, and I'm going to turn it over to you in a second, but this racial slur allegedly and reportedly came from a couple white students sitting courtside against Norfolk State players who are HBCU. But there were 3 or 4 black players for Illinois State on the floor at the same time. So were those brothers not offended by the word coming from in a racially charged situation? Did they think that was okay to be said? They should have had just as much issue with it as Norfolk State did. So that's why I'm saying I got different versions of conflict going through that word, both in the moment of when it was said, how it was said, but also historically in terms of how that word has impacted me in my evolution as a black man in this country as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you said made a lot of good points.
Yeah.
It's high level college basketball. It's D1 basketball. 10 dudes are on the court. At the very least, in that situation, 8 were black. Probably, I think all 10 were all black. We've seen the clips circulating on social media. I didn't realize it was a student. I thought it was just a fan.
Okay,
like
so remove students.
A grown fan. Not that matters at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. You're right, because I had that same thought where, if you hear that as a black player for Illinois State, and I'm not trying to police anybody's blackness. Everybody's got their own thing that they're going through. They're trying to carry. I don't want to put this burden on them because that's not fair to put the burden on them. But if you hear that being said, how's your immediate reaction? Like, no, him, he's got to go. Demonstratively pointing. How is your immediate reaction? Not, hey, let me talk to you, Norfolk State player. He doesn't represent us. I don't know what's going on with him over there. I'm sorry that happened to you. I don't know how that's not the case. And then when you're a head coach and you find out what happened, how do you not say, oh, that's why you're on the court? That's why Coach Jones for Norfolk State, you're trying to go over and address some fans on the court. It's not game related.
You got to back that up, though, because I know what you're explaining because I know the story. But those who are watching and listening might not know you're talking about the opposing, the home coach who confronted Norfolk State's coach. Yes. So set that scene first.
So
and then
there's video circulating, and I'm not sure if we have it or not, but Coach Ryan Pedden of Illinois State.
There we go.
Sees there's some sort of shouting going on. So you know how college basketball is set up. Some of you might not. I'll explain it to you. On one side of the court, there is home team over here. Staying in camera, home team over here. That's their bench. Away team's bench over here, right on the court somewhere. And he sees from his home bench Coach Jones yelling at the officials. No clue what's going on. Because why would he know what's going on? There was a timeout call for some reason. He's trying to coach. He looks up and hears people getting excited. So he gets up there and he's excited now. Because if you're going to yell at a ref, damn it, I'm going to yell at a ref also, which is fine. I'm down with that. But the second you hear that happened, Coach Jones comes over and says he called my player, I'm breathing lips here, Mike. He called my player the mother bleeping N-word. When you're Pedden, your response has got to be, I would think, he shouldn't have done that. Carry on. My fault. I didn't know that's what you were yelling. I thought you were trying to get a competitive advantage. I'm sorry. I should not have done that. Coach Pedden, after the game now, in the press conference, when asked about it, he said, quote, I was upset that he was on the floor and I was raising hell with the referees. It was never personal towards him. I'll just leave it at that. I'll take the high road. I'm a competitor, man. I'm an Italian. So sometimes my emotions can get the best of me at times. But I do not apologize for my competitive edge, and that's how I want our team to play. It's like, okay, this isn't a basketball thing. This should have paused the basketball side of this, and humanity should step in there. So I get it initially. You're yelling at refs. You're trying to get a competitive edge. I'm going to start yelling as well. I get double technicals were assessed by the coaches if that matters at all. But once you hear Coach Jones tell you what happened, and then you end the game and you're sitting in the press conference and somebody else asks you about what was going on, you can't be like, I'm Italian, I'm fiery, man. What do you want? No, that's just not a good look. It isn't. I would hope that you as a leader, y'all know my stance on coaches, but as somebody who has given a leader sort of title because he is a coach, would do a better job of leading with compassion and empathy in that situation than what he did. And it was an opportunity for him to do so, and sadly he missed it.
He missed it, and he's not sensitive to what that moment needed, right? And you know, again, you have to be more aware if you're going to be in that position, a high profile, and you know, you could debate the level of leadership a coach has, but he's definitely in one of the most high profile positions at an entire university.
Yeah.
There's the president, football coach, basketball coach. and everybody else after that for most universities at that level. So he missed the point because this had to be something that he called out. He needed to call out initially. It needed to be something he needed to follow up with. And then afterwards, as we see, there was a string of apologies coming from Illinois State, the administration and the coach. Norfolk State went out and said, hey, these are some issues here. And they did it the right way. They did it the right way. Now, there's a but that I'm wanting to say, and I'm going to bypass the opportunity to go with the but there. I just need to see our culture understand the demonic nature of that word, whether it's used in a racial sense by someone not black, and how demoralizing and destructive it can be if we continue to refer to ourselves as that and we don't even bat an eye.
Yeah.
And that's where I am with it. It's tough because, again, like, and I'm a really, really oversimplify it. You know, if CJ comes in here and slaps me in my face, and then John Roser comes in here and slaps me in my face.
John is white, for those who don't know.
Yes, John Roser's white.
Great producer for the Chris Vernon show.
Yes, he and CJ both have phenomenal jobs here with the Grind City Media and the Grizzlies. One's black, one's white. It doesn't negate the fact that I just got slapped in the face and assaulted. Mm-hmm. Do I have to assign racism to John Roser doing it versus CJ doing it? Am I more accepting of it because CJ did it and it's not an issue, but when John does it, I have to go file a complaint with HR and make it more than what it is. Those are things that when we deal with stuff as black people, we have to, and I'm saying black people, and I'm the last person in the world to think that we're a monolithic people. I don't ascribe to monolithic thinking, but it does bother me when we make such a big deal of hearing this word, and then maybe we get on a bus after the game, throw on our headsets, or go into the locker room, and every other word is that word. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it sits at a very delicate point. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not preaching to anybody. I'm just saying that's my struggle with it. But I'm glad that it was called out. We can't have that in the sport. And hopefully that fan will learn a lesson from it and never come to another Illinois State game again.
Yeah, hopefully everybody learned a bit of a lesson.
Yeah.
From that moment. Before we get to Ricky Smiley,
Yep.
one more serious, sad thing to talk about. I don't know if you saw this happen as we were setting up the show throughout the course of the week. I don't know if I sent it to you. Andre Ballard passed away.
Yes, man.
R.I.P., great actor. I know him from Glory and Brooklyn Nine-Nine specifically, but he was in a bunch of different things, Homicide as well. One of the great actors of my lifetime. Not male, not black. The qualifiers are out. Just actor was phenomenal. The way that the role that he played in Glory was tremendous, and the way that he was kind enough. Now he was getting paid, so let me make that clear.
You can still be kind and get paid,
but still kind enough to go. And I'm big Adam Sandberg fan. I love The Lonely Island, and I loved watching him on SNL. And when he decides he's going to go do a goofy ass show about policing, it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and watch this, and then you find out that Bauer's going to do it also, and Bauer's going to be the uber professional police chief. It's like, oh my gosh, sign me up for that. He was kind enough to say, oh, this is a goofy ass show. I'm down to do some kind of light and fun. I hadn't done anything light my whole career, I don't think. So yeah, I'm down to do that. And Captain Holt really made that show pop. It was a great show. For those of you who didn't watch it, I think you should go back and watch it. Some of Bauer's better work. R.I.P. to him, and thoughts and prayers to his families, Mike.
Hey, you said it right there. No matter what film or show he was on, he brought a level of class with it. And
just so much class.
He had a Sidney Poitier type vibe about how he went about doing his business. Very Morgan Freeman-ish. When it came about how he conducted himself in film and on TV. So, hey, man, rest in peace. He was only 61 years old, battled a brief illness that took him away from this earth. And but, yes, may he rest in peace, and his family. His legacy is going to live on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's get to our culture maker.
Yes.
Ricky Smiley. Ricky Smiley did some things. Let's look at the things that Ricky Smiley did.
We gotta bring it down. We gotta chill. Let's get educated. Alabama A&M, Alabama State University, Tuskegee, Morehouse, Spelman. These colleges are waiting on you. Have an opportunity of a lifetime. I heard you was funny. You might end up being a comedian, but guess what? You need to get educated because when economy becomes business, economy becomes you got to know how to talk to people, introduce yourself to people, and set yourself up for success. You see what I'm saying? Let's think about this stuff. No, I'm not fussing at y'all. I'm not judging y'all. I am you. I know exactly how you feel. Seems like the whole damn world against you. Hell, they just send me over here and ain't even do nothing. I get it. I get it, because sometimes you just gonna have teachers some teachers just gonna have it out for you because what you did in the 4th grade, in the 5th grade, in the 6th grade. Hey, watch out for her. She your problem. Watch out for him. He gonna cause a lot of problems. And they have an end for you. So we have to work hard to change our image, change our reputation. Maybe take a trip to Alabama State, maybe go to a step show. We're gonna pay for that. We're gonna do some stuff, get you out of the room, the classroom, and let's get some exposure going. Let's do some stuff, some fun stuff, and it's gonna change your life. Trust me.
Mike offering to pay for kids' trips to Alabama State and Alabama A&M, I do believe. That's big, especially those kids, because sometimes when you have nothing, sometimes having a little bit of hope can get you through it. And if, as a middle schooler, it is all right, life is tough right now, but I hope to go to Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Morehouse, Spelman, Miles. Who else is in that area? Albany State is in that area. Savannah State. Having the opportunity to go to one of these places is great, and it becomes a fantasy and a goal now that you're striving towards, and you hit that goal, and now you're there.
You know, just to back up, and I know you set it up earlier in the show when we came in, you know, Ricky Smiley, phenomenal comedian, radio show, national radio show, syndicated personality and host, based in Birmingham. He loves where he's from, and he goes back there. He lives there.
I like Birmingham also.
Yeah.
I love going to Birmingham.
Birmingham is one of those up-and-coming cities, man. I've seen it transform itself over the last 20, 30 years. But he was speaking at an alternative school, as you talked about, to at-risk students, to say the least, students who have gone wayward and sideways. And the passion that he spoke with, you know, I've been in those situations both as a wayward student before, but also I've been in hundreds of classrooms, thousands of classrooms over my career as an invited speaker, you know, based on my career and what I've been able to do, and talk to kids like that. You know, I've done prison ministries as a speaker. I've done those kind of things. And what I heard him talk about was not only here's what I'm giving you as an opportunity to see, but I'm also telling you that I was in your shoes as well, too. So I had to take these paths. And all you can do, all you can hope for is that out of the maybe a dozen, 15 students that were there, 3 or 4 of them get it. And I know you want to save them all. You want to give them all. You want all of them in 10 years to turn out and say, hey, I was in that classroom you came and spoke to, and here's where I am now. But the reality of it is, you know, you may only be able to reach 3 or 4 of them, and maybe only 1 or 2 of them can actually get it turned around based on what they're dealing with. And that's what we have to focus on. Anytime we can reach one and teach one and bless one, that's what we have to do, man. And that's why, to me, that stood out as the culture maker, because Ricky Smiley took time to go in there and do it. And now it's up to some of the kids to try to do what they can to take that seed and allow for it to prosper and to blossom and to harvest, you know, in the years to come.
It's hard, man, being in those types of situations because you're not talking to them. And this is why it's so hit or miss, because you're talking to the person they'll be in 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right? You're talking to them about something that they've got no understanding about right now. And it is, as you know, I've been in a couple of those situations as a grown-up, but as a kid, my parents would routinely, and grown-ups around me, the village, so to speak, would routinely talk to me about things, and I just wouldn't get it. 12-year-old me, 13-year-old me, 14-year-old me wouldn't get it. And then I turned 17 and be like, oh, I remember when they said that thing once upon a time ago, right? And you pull from the knowledge that was given to you many, many years ago. And that's the difficult part about it. I think they're in middle school. They're 8th graders, maybe they're 9th, 10th graders. But you're talking to them about something that is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the line. And they're trying to get to Fortnite and hot Cheetos or whatever they're eating on these days. That's what they're Takis. That's what they're focused on right now.
Yeah.
What's the little Minecraft? They're trying to get to that and to TikTok. So they're not, while they're listening and they might hear you, they might not feel the impact and the importance of your statements and understand that. And the hope is they get a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and it is, what am I doing? What am I going to? Oh, wait a second. Mr. Smiley told me that thing once upon a time.
Yeah.
He took me to Alabama State, and it's a beautiful campus. Alabama A&M's campus is gorgeous. He took me there. It's beautiful. There are attractive people my age on those campuses. Let me check into some stuff here and see. I'm wayward.
No, you're not. No,
but,
you're not.
But
you're right on point. You're right on point.
No, as the young person, I'm
Oh,
wayward.
okay.
But I'm not lost because he has given me a light to sort of follow. He's given me a path that I can choose to follow. Let me see what's on this path. Let me see if it's interesting. I can't tell you how many people I went to school with at Tuskegee and how many people I know who went to various HBCUs. It was like, I kind of ended up here because somebody when I was 13 said, hey, you should look into it. And I half-assed looked into it and stumbled into it and loved every minute of it. And that's the tough thing to do. That's why you only reach a handful of those young people sitting in the class. That's part of the reason why you only reach a handful of those young people sitting in classrooms.
Yeah. But that goes back to the the analogy of seeds. Like you plant seeds knowing that majority of those seeds will never come to harvest.
Yep.
So what you need to do is plant enough, and it takes time. Like you said, you're speaking to people about things that they're going to do or become 4 or 5 years down the line. But all of us, and I'm pretty sure, if I told you to give me the name of your best teacher ever and your worst teacher ever, you probably could think of a couple of people, maybe 1 or 2 in those cases, right? And something that you were told years ago will eventually make sense because it will never leave you. This one, they probably don't even know who Ricky Smiley is because he doesn't perform to their demographic, but their parents do, right? And then so at a certain point, and I'll end mine on this. Like, I went to Grambling. I told you guys this if you follow the show enough. I went to Grambling State University. I didn't know where Grambling was when I first heard about it when I was 13 years old. All I knew was Doug Williams was the quarterback of the Washington Redskins. I was in middle school, junior high school. He won the Super Bowl, was the first black MVP of the Super Bowl, and I went to a camp that he hosted. And he told me who he was and where he came from, and I said, oh, wow, I need to figure this place out too. He planted that seed in 13-year-old me that wouldn't even harvest until 5 years later. I didn't know I was going to go to Grambling on a scholarship and have a chance to play basketball and all these other things. I didn't know that then. But what I knew is that, man, this man was somebody that's famous, and he looks like me complexion-wise, and he's in the sports, and he went to this place, and he became this. So let me find out if I could do it. And I'm sure all of us kind of have that kind of story, and many of us who don't have that kind of story, then let's try to put people in their lives who can be that kind of story for them.
Absolutely. That's a great way to end the show. Thank you guys so much. Talked about a lot of stuff, Mike.
It was a heavy show, man. It was a great show. Heavy in a good way.
Celebration Bowl. Mike is taking FAMU. I'm taking FAMU. Watch Howard mess around and win this thing. I'm going to be so mad. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us this week. We'll be back next week on HBCU Huddle. For Mike, I'm CJ. Everybody take care.